And welcome everybody to a special interview here at the Racing Angle. I'm Logan Morris. I'm your host, or whatever's left of him, and I'm joined today by a very special guest. We are so thrilled to have her on. Ellie Whittington is joining us. She's a two-time Emmy-winning award journalist. She's done social media and NASCAR for several years from various teams, and now with Ford Performance and Ford Racing. And so, Ellie, thank you for coming on the show.
Yes, Logan, thank you for having me. Great intro. I love the enthusiasm and energy. Let's get this started.
Oh, I'm a man who needs decaf, I can promise you, but I like my caffeine. But all right, to get started, let's go way back. Where did a passion for motorsports come from for you? When did that start?
Yeah, so I knew pretty early on, and actually in high school, that I wanted to work in sports, that I wanted to go to college and become a sports journalist of sorts. I have a journalism degree from Elon University and then my master's in sport management. So I really followed this path and knowing I wanted to work in sports. The motorsports part of thing came a little later along the journey, and it's a really interesting passion that I gained through the revival of North Wilkesboro Speedway. So go back to when I decided that I wanted to work in sports, working in racing, especially close to home, wasn't even an option. The Speedway had been closed for my entire life. And I had always said, if I was in sports, no matter where I was in my career, and they ever decided to open back up the racetrack, that I wanted to be a part in some way. And so we can talk more about that, but fast forward in 2022 is when I first worked a race at all, and that was at North Wilkesboro Speedway. And then I was like, hey, this is a lot of fun, and NASCAR is fun, and the fans are fun, and racing, you just caught this bug in a sense. And so from there is when I started pursuing more of a full-time career in motorsports.
What was it about sports growing up that you were like, yeah, I have to be a part of this?
My dad's a huge sports fan. I spent Sundays with him watching whatever was on, the Dallas Cowboys mostly, and NASCAR. So interestingly enough, that's how I learned about sports. Was my dad's a huge Tar Heel basketball fan. So that was a reason to stay up past my bedtime, was to watch college basketball. Growing up in North Carolina, a huge deal. We watched a lot of NFL, and we did watch NASCAR. So interestingly enough, my dad was a huge Jimmy Johnson fan because of the tie of Lowe's Hardware to Wilkes County, and that being Jimmy's primary sponsor for many years. So I spent a lot of Sundays watching Jimmy Johnson, and for whatever reason, that wasn't the thing that I got the most. I asked a lot of questions about football. I asked a lot of questions about basketball. And a lot of questions about baseball. And then I really had to teach myself motorsports because I didn't pay as much attention as I should have as a child. But that was really it. It was a way that I bonded with my dad. And he never told me like, hey, you're a girl, or, females don't work in this industry. He always answered my questions. And it was just, I've always been competitive. I was an athlete myself. So that competitive nature, like, it just doesn't go away. And so I thought, that would be fun. Like, I want to do something fun. And another reason I love sports is it's something that brings people together, right? Like, Logan, no matter what we could believe or think on anything else that goes on in the world, we can come together of a passion for motorsports, right? I could talk to you for the rest of the day probably about racing in some sort, and we didn't have to touch anything else. And that's something that brings us together. And that's one thing that I really love about sports and motorsports in general.
I couldn't agree with you more. And it's so cool to hear about your bond with your father. And, you mentioned growing up in North Carolina, you're from Wilkes County, and you mentioned North Wilkesboro Speedway a few minutes ago. Pardon me. I speak English most of the time. So I have to ask, what did the return of North Wilkesboro mean to you?
Wow. It's a very loaded question, and one that I feel honored to even talk about. So growing up in a small town and it being really industrial, factory based, and then those factories left, Lowe's Hardware left when I was probably in high school, and NASCAR had been gone, the last race being in 96. So for a long time, and there wasn't really, I don't say there wasn't a hope of a revival, but for so many years, it was a thing that people talked about that once was, not something that's going to be. It's the good old days of NASCAR. It's what racing used to be. And a lot of stories, both of my parents separately had told me stories of on practice and qualifying day, you would skip school and no one went to school and you went to the track. And this is probably prior to having to have a ticket to watch that sort of thing. You went to the racetrack. and that NASCAR, and then a lot of local legends, as you know, from the area. And so it was a thing of like, this is our heritage. This is kind of where we came from, and speaking about racing, but it was never something of like, this is the future. And so I think there was always this glimmering hope I'm so passionate about it. Why it means so much to me is how it's helped the economy, how it's helped the local community, how it's helped people really be passionate and about being from Wilkes County, about the town, and of course, really proud of the racetrack. Like, it's this pride that comes through that was really lost for so long. And so that's probably what it means to me more than anything. And just to hear NASCAR drivers and to hear old and new people from years and years. I just saw Kenny Wallace posted something a few minutes ago before jumping on. Like, he's so excited to be back at North Wilkesboro, and seeing these drivers and people really speak up and say, no, this is like a real NASCAR track. And this is a great place to race. This is a great racing atmosphere, is really cool. And I don't think I'll ever get over that part of it.
Of course, NASCAR returns to North Wilkesboro this weekend, but I got to ask, what were your emotions that first weekend back after the reopening?
So I was currently working for the Washington Nationals in social media, and they had ran a couple races like prior to the actual racetrack revival in August of 2022. My mom had went to one, and she called me and she was like, it's really back. Like the track is opened. You've got to come. Like, you said you wanted to be a part of this. And I really think that you need to come to this event, this racetrack revival, Dale Jr.'s racing. And I was like, okay. So I took off work. I drove home from Washington, D.C., and I'd actually met with a guy named Brandon Brown, who now is the track operator president at South Boston Speedway, an awesome guy. He was working on the racetrack revival. He had moved to Wilkes County. And so it was so funny. I can still remember we were sitting in the office at North Wilkesboro. And I mean, this place was like, whoever found the key to the door kind of thing, like barely open. We're meeting, and somebody's like trying to get in the door to carry in an air conditioning machine. So I'm like holding the door while Brandon, he's like, sorry, I got to go help this guy so we can have AC in here. Like, it was bare bones operation. And so we chatted, I guess this was a week or two before. And he was like, I can't offer you any money. Like, we have no money. We're running this on a bare bones budget. I can't pay you, but I need your help. Like, if you can show up. And so for me, I was like, okay, this is a way I can give back. And this is something I've said I would do. And so I come back, and I was like a fish out of water. I mean, when it comes to motorsports, especially short track racing, it's a different world. It's a different language. It's a different audience. And I can tell you, I probably didn't know a heck of a lot what was going on track, but getting to talk to these drivers and what racing meant to them, and then seeing the stands, like, I've never had an emotion in sports. I've covered a lot. Like you said, I've covered 3 Olympics. I've covered WNBA finals and Final Fours and all kinds of things. And I can honestly tell you, I've never felt an emotion in a crowd, in an atmosphere like that night at North Wilkesboro. I mean, there were people, there was not space in the grandstands for another person to fit in. There was this like beautiful sunset, I remember, right before the green flag. It was just like this picturesque moment. And I was like, am I the only one feeling this? And then you talk to other people. A couple weeks ago, I was at Junior Motorsports, and I was talking to Carson Quapple, who actually won that race and beat Dale Jr., who he was driving for at the time, or still is driving for. And I was like, do you remember, like, that's the first time I ever interviewed you? And I was like, what did you feel about that? And he was like, man, I don't know if anything can ever beat that. And hearing that from a guy who, one day hopes to be a Cup Series driver, I'm sure, be like, they felt that same emotion is like, okay, this was around, everyone felt this, and you didn't even have to be from North Wilkesboro to feel this emotion. So it was a very emotional, and it still is.
I love that story. What do you think people outside of that area don't fully realize or understand about what that speedway means to your community?
Yeah, I think when you think about these bigger tracks or these expansion tracks or places that NASCAR has went out west or in other areas, there are things that bring people there, whether it's Phoenix and there's other pro sports, and that's kind of, you see that in a lot of areas. But this is a small town. Like, Wilkes County population probably somewhere in the 60,000 range, I believe. I mean, and it's one of the biggest counties in North Carolina, but it's very spread out. Like when I was growing up, we had Walmart. You're an hour away from a Target. We didn't have a Starbucks. Like it was a very, you didn't have things as far as a big city that didn't draw people. I will say, like the Blue Ridge Mountains, the Parkway, there's so much outdoor things to do in Wilkes County, but something to get people to come and stay, spend their money, go to local restaurants and stay for the culture. Like Wilkes County, it's a different culture and just in general. And so when you don't have this community pride around something, like you take it to these bigger areas where, well, NASCAR is here this weekend. Like I was working in San Diego a couple weekends ago. NASCAR is a nice thing that happened this year on a weekend. In Wilkes County, NASCAR is the thing that's happening this year on a weekend, so that's the biggest difference.
When you being a brand strategist and a journalist, and how did you break into the social media world professionally?
Great question. And it's one that I often, why did you get on this social media route? And honest answer is, when I was coming up in journalism, is that my friends and peers weren't watching the local news. We weren't going home to watch the sports news at night or flipping on Sports Center the next morning. Everyone, as soon as they would leave class, they were pulling out their cell phones. And I was like, oh, this is how news is breaking. This is what people are paying attention to, is social media, not going to pick up a newspaper or flip on the television. And so I said, I can still be a journalist and hold those journalistic values and tell stories in a different way. And that's something that I hold very true. Is I still think hard-hitting journalism is super important. I still hold those. I'm thankful to have a journalism degree and to have that journalist integrity in everything that I do. Like when I take a photo, I'm taking it, I can edit, the coloring a little bit, but I'm not drastically taking things out or editing it differently, because as a journalist, you have to kind of leave things as they're seen. And I hope to, and I don't like inflate stories, and we could have a whole other conversation about AI and how I feel about that. But my first internship was with Major League Baseball, and I was a social media intern, and it was really the start of when social media was becoming a thing separate from writing stories or being an online blogger or being a newspaper writer. It was becoming its own department, its own thing, and social media has only grown from there. And so a lot of the jobs that I've had or came into, it's been, maybe I was the first person hired full-time for social media, or just to run social media, or realizing how much effort they needed to put behind social media. And so now it's kind of funny to think that there's huge social media teams at places, and what they are compared to, you would even have somebody, whoever's job it was to be PR or to report on the team, like, hey, can you throw some stuff up on Instagram? It was not two separate strategies, two separate things.
And you've watched that evolution, and how challenging has that been to kind of keep up with? As you mentioned, that you started out at a time where you might have been the first person professionally hired to do it, but now there's whole teams. How challenging is it to keep up with that evolution?
So hard. I mean, just social media is something that's ever changing every day. I could tell you, this is the strategy I would do. This is what I would push. This is how Instagram works. This is how Facebook works. This is how TikTok, this is how I would do things. And Logan, you could come back to me tomorrow and say, what do you think today? And I could tell you different tips and different things, because every day I'm learning something different. Even before I got on this podcast, I'm checking my email to look that Instagram specs have changed and what it prefers size-wise. And it's like, it's an ever changing door. And I think that the older I get, the less I am in tune with trends and catchy phrases and words than our youth are saying, right? It's like I'm always having to train myself on what's cool, where, when you're younger, you just kind of are in the know of things. So I've definitely seen that change of like almost having to research what certain things mean, or how to do it in a sense. So I would say that's, and just how much it's grown, these platforms. If you think about TikTok, and it really popping off, there's a term, popping off in 2020, that's only 6 years old. Anything else we study in history is way longer. Like 6 years, that's an infant, right? It's a baby. It's a 6-year-old. It's been around a little bit longer than that, but like TikTok really became popular until the past, 5 to 6 years. And so studying something that no one still has fully figured out, it is interesting.
And then were there mentors or people who really helped open doors for you? Who were some of those folks, if so?
Yeah, that's so sweet of you to ask. And I'm always, that's a huge reason I do things like this and want to give back and want to help people, is because a lot of that is because people helped open doors for me. And like I said, I'm from a small town where not a lot of people went off to bigger schools or bigger cities and chased these dreams. And I didn't have those mentors to necessarily kind of lead me through how do you get into college and what do you do once you get there and how do you get internships and jobs. So I'm a huge advocate of being that for other people. Mentors in my life, I've had professors, I've had, I will say, in racing, definitely, like Brandon Brown helped me. Greg Hoffman, who now is executive director of North Wilkesboro Speedway, had they not believed in me and gave me a shot just to work in motorsports. Richard Petty and the Petty, who obviously introduced me to Kyle and allowed me to, he was a huge encourager and would give me advice and things that, like, I'm forever grateful for having those relationships in motorsport. So when I talk about racing, those are the people that I would say. There's some people from Legacy Motor Club, Amy Stock, who has worked for Jimmy Johnson for a long time. Just have a lot of people within racing that really took me under their wing and helped me when I started out, because if it hadn't have been for them, like, I don't know if I would be where I am if somebody hadn't given me the chance or believed in me.
It's just so great to hear. And, you mentioned Legacy Motor Club and Motorsports and Richard Petty, but you also mentioned that, you did social media for the Washington Nationals. So how did that transition into motorsports come for you?
Yeah, I'll tell you a funny story, Logan. I'm a huge baseball fan. My dream was to work in Major League Baseball. It's a grueling schedule when you work 162 games. That's every day. The thing I liked about NASCAR is Sunday was race day, at least for the Cup Series. It was one day a week was race day, where every day of the week was game day. And so I ran a baseball podcast that was like European focused. It was number 5 in Europe of sports podcasts. Like, I talked about baseball all the time. And I knew the stars, the home run derbies tonight, I'll be watching. I still follow baseball closely. I'm still a huge baseball fan. So I get to motorsports and I'm still learning. Like, that's what I'm saying. These people took a chance on me when I was still learning. I could tweet, live post a baseball game, a football game, anything. You could just put me out there. And in racing, fake it till you make it, right? I guess I faked it till I made it. And I was at Phoenix. It was one of my first, I think it was my very first race, and it was during practice. And Eric Jones was practicing really well. And someone came up to me and they're like, "Why are you not posting that we're running like second in practice?" And I was like, because he's practicing. Like, in baseball, I would have never live posted batting practice and been like, Juan Soto hit 4 home runs during batting practice. People would have been like, we don't care. And so then learning in motorsports that, oh, do you guys care about practice? Oh, okay. So it was just these like literally failing forward moments of learning from your mistakes or not doing. I probably said some things on social media. I would take a little, I used to be very probably risque on the Legacy Motor Club account because, and I probably said some things that were not appropriate in the NASCAR world, but I also think that it helped fans be closer. I felt like I had this relationship, like you said, Logan, we met at a fan day. Like, I felt that I had, as the admin, had this relationship with fans that made them feel closer to the team and closer to the drivers. And that's something that's been really passionate for me, is how can I give people this behind the scenes? If you're not at the racetrack, how can I make you feel like you're at the racetrack? Maybe you've never been able to meet your favorite driver, but I can show you that.
And then, how did that opportunity with Legacy come about?
Yeah, interesting enough, I applied for a job on LinkedIn, I believe. I was just looking. I just had decided I wanted to work in motorsport and hopefully on the cup level. And I applied for an agency that had worked with Jimmy Johnson, and I took a few interviews, and then there I was at a racetrack really quickly. I was moving from Washington, D.C. to the Charlotte area. Um, and now it feels like a whirlwind of how one day it was just here I'm flying on the team plane to a NASCAR track.
How do you balance authenticity while representing a race team or another entity of that size?
I, as myself, hope to always be authentic in everything that I do. Like I want to always be Ellie, whether it's running my personal channels or from. I think it's interesting, especially from a race channel or team, whether it's the Washington Nationals or whatever team I've been on and supported, especially when the team struggles, is it's being authentic in the fact this is something I try to do a lot at Legacy. Is I remember one time Noah Gregson was leading, I think at Talladega, and he wrecked like on one of the last 3 laps. And it was just this like, like this so frustrating moment. And it's like, I think I just tweeted like the little emoji, like the little melting face, or I think a little sad, just kind of like a sad face emoji. That's all I tweeted. And anybody live watching the race knew exactly, they felt that same emotion. And so for me, it was like we didn't have to say words. It was this authentic feeling that we were all feeling. And so I think I always felt like if I can show that I'm a real human, that this brand has a human behind it, and to be authentic of when the team is doing bad. I think that there's this fine line between not being tone deaf. Like I'm not going to be like, rah, 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 we got them this week when we haven't finished in the top 20 in 6 weeks. Like that's silly, right? Like, no, my fan base knows that. I know that. But then at the same time, you can't be self-deprecating in the fact of just, you can't be negative Nancy, right? Like you still have to keep that morale and keep your fans engaged. And then also understanding that with the drivers, like in being authentic, I know what drivers I can talk to right on race day or how long they need to prepare or get ready before they get in the car, and who I can't, and how to treat them in a way that is authentic. And you know, when I was at Legacy, Carson Hocevar filled in and drove several races at the end of the year and worked very closely with him. And still to this day, I'm sure he has a bigger head now. I know he does. But, you know, he was one of those that like he wanted to do media and content all the time, anytime. Like, get me in front of a camera. Let me say something. Let me do something. I'll do whatever you want. And so knowing that that was his personality right until he got into the race car versus somebody else, they need their time to get in the right headspace. And so to your question about being authentic, I think at the same time, understanding at that time, like the brand, what Jimmy Johnson wanted, and then the legacy, literally pun intended, that Richard Petty had left, and honoring those and these people and honoring their legacy in a way that's authentic to them. Like, I'm not going to make some silly meme of Richard Petty. Like, that's disrespectful, right? Like, how do we treat him in a way, or I'm not going to try to ask him a question that's going to catch him off guard, or he's going to say something that the media or our fan is going to take wrong. So it's understanding and respecting those people too.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned trying to, the challenge of kind of working with Legacy with what Jimmy has with his forward thinking vision, but also Legacy Motor Club is linked to arguably the greatest NASCAR team of all time in Petty Enterprises. Mm-hmm. How challenging was that to kind of play into both those roles, that forward thinking vision, but also paying tribute to all the lineage that Legacy is tied to?
Right. And it's been a while. It's been several years since working with Legacy. And So I don't want to speak and say that I fully understand their vision and where they're going and where they're headed. And it's really cool. I'm always proud to see them be successful and do well and continue to improve. So that's really cool. But I think it's a respect thing. I think that's NASCAR in general, right? Like NASCAR really needs to respect where it came from. Going even back to our previous conversation on North Wilkesboro, is when you talk about the Petty family and what they've meant to racing, I think that NASCAR as a whole needs to respect that and give the credit where credit is due, where these guys, like, it's crazy. I would ride with Richard Petty to the racetrack and he would tell me stories or say things. He would go into, he'd be like, well, that's where did you know that the window net was created because of my wreck here? And I'm like, no, I didn't know. Like, that's a crazy story. And just to think how NASCAR, like the car itself, has evolved from these drivers and what they went through and like the conditions in which they raced in, even to the 90s and those drivers. That's why I think it's really cool to see these drivers be brought back to track and talk about things and et cetera, is that, having those, that it's so important, no matter the team, whether it's Hendrick Motorsports, whether it's Wood Brothers or these teams that have been around for a long time, or Legacy Motor Club, continuing to remember their heritage and the drivers and what it took to get them where they are today.
What was it like working with Richard Petty and Dale Inman? And again, they are in many ways some of the last leaves on the proverbial tree for NASCAR's lineage. What was it like spending time with them?
Oh wow, it's really such an honor that I don't even know that I can put into words. Just being trusted to tell their stories in some ways and work with them. And Dale Inman is just a book of knowledge. Like, I will never understand how someone can recall a race and a lap in a race or a pit stop in a race from 50 years ago. Like, it's mind-boggling to me. And Dale having 8 championships and all the people that he worked with and the things that he knows, I would say that Dale Inman knows things that no one will ever know that Dale Inman knows, And so, and Richard Petty, just the relationship that they have together and how much they've worked, like, to still be friends and that close. They are relatives, but to be that close with someone that NASCAR it's special. It's different in how close that you would be. I don't know a head coach in football who is still that close with their quarterback in their 80s, their 90s, so it's really cool to see. And so for me, going back to what I was telling you about learning NASCAR, like being thrown into something where I didn't even understand how important practice was, to being in charge of these legends and telling their stories and respecting and honoring them and like showcasing who they are today and how they still mean to the world, the sport. And Richard Petty being a national icon, right? Like, I think he's beyond NASCAR, but like, I remember we were at I think it was Phoenix. It was the last race one year. I can't remember who the artist was. I can't remember who the artist was, but it was someone that I absolutely know that Richard Petty did not know who was. I've got the photo somewhere, but they wanted the photo with him, right? Like, this was a big deal, and they're like asking him for the photo, and that was really cool. But just to say that, like, people, and I think that NASCAR needs more of that. NASCAR needs to be a brand bigger than itself, because if you leave the I was going to say 4 walls, but let's say 4 turns of racing, does somebody know who Chase Elliott is that doesn't know NASCAR? I don't know. That would be a study in itself. And so I think NASCAR, going back to being really particular about brand and building brands, is I think that they need more of that too.
A few minutes ago, you mentioned Carson Hocevar. Obviously, he is the most polarizing driver currently, I think, in the series. Maybe Denny Hamlin, but that's kind of cooled off lately. And he and Richard they made some hot dogs at Martinsville Motor Speedway several years ago. And I believe you were the social media person that was with Richard as he did his autograph in mustard. What was that day like?
So I feel bad taking credit, but that was my mastermind of a plan, is to have them make hot dogs together at Martinsville. Why? Because I knew that Richard Petty loves hot dogs. He loves hot dogs, and Carson would, like I said, at the time, would be willing to do about anything that I ask. And so Carson as you can see, he still runs his own social media, but I would come up with these ideas and he would take it and run with it. And he would be like, well, can you order me this like apron that looks like this, and I want to do this, and can we do it with Richard? Like, can we do it like this? Blah 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 blah. And I was like, okay. So there's a lot of planning involved in this, and then obviously my PR people told the broadcast, and we had it on broadcast, and yes, I was behind the scenes. Like, talk about total chaos. I think my coworkers were like, Ellie, why did you come up with this idea? Because the Martinsville hot dog stand is small. It was like right before the race when they're selling hot dogs. Like, now is not the time to be doing this. But yeah, I was behind the scenes of that, shooting content. And I really loved that. Was a cool one and really neat moment. But thank you for remembering that.
Yeah. Any other campaigns from your time that really stick out that you're proud of?
Most definitely, to bring it full circle, Noah Gregson winning the first All-Star fan vote at North Wilkesboro. This Noah for Mayor campaign was something that I was kind of my brainchild and something I was really excited about. It just getting him. He came from Xfinity at the time. Now we know O'Reilly Series to the Cup Series, and he had this huge fan base and following, and just really wanting to make sure it helps sponsors. It helps. It's almost adds another race, because if a car automatically makes it to the All-Star race, and that way where you had a fan vote, it helped the company, it helped the team, it helped from a sponsor perspective. And so it really like rallied his fan base around him. So super proud of that. Some of the sponsor campaigns that we had, that's one thing in NASCAR that I don't think you get anywhere else, is working with these sponsors and the campaigns behind them. And so I would say I did a schedule release for Jimmy Johnson when he came back for several races, and created this whole like almost football-esque schedule release for Jimmy, and pieced together this cool thing. So yeah, there's several. Rode with Eric Jones in a Black Hawk helicopter at Talladega. That was special. So several moments that I don't think you get anywhere else.
And your connections with the Petty family continue, because you've spent a lot of time with Kyle Petty and the charity ride. How did that opportunity come about, and how unique is that?
Yeah, unique is a great term. And from working with Richard at Legacy Motor Club, and we were doing the Petty 75 years in racing. So that's when kind of Kyle got really involved in celebrating 75 years of the Petty family. And so he was coming to the race shop pretty often and was really hands-on in that. And so we were working together as a team from all aspects of the Petty hat that you see at a lot of tracks. It's like a statue outside. So one of my coworkers, Harrison, worked really heavily on that campaign, and we all kind of worked together to bring this Petty 75. And so I got to know Kyle through that. And then they had a changeover at the charity ride in 2023. I had left Legacy Motor Club at this point, and his wife Morgan called me and said, "Hey, we think you'd be great to come along and do this thing." And so I went on their site inspection before I actually went on the ride that we crossed paths at. But that's kind of how I got to end with the charity ride.
And then for people that only see the motorcycles and the celebrities and the king and all that, what's something with the charity ride that goes on behind the scenes that people don't realize?
Wow. The planning, the effort, the work. Morgan, Kyle's wife, goes over and beyond. I think she works harder than almost anyone that I know, as far as putting just like how mindful she is of every stop. And I think, so for those that don't know, it's a charity ride for Victory Junction, a camp in North Carolina for children with disabilities or chronic illnesses. And the work that goes into these motorcycle riders riding across America or a different portion of the country every year, and her putting together that map, and then strategically where you're going to stop, where these NASCAR fans that might not ever be able to go to a racetrack or might not ever meet a celebrity, and this is the biggest thing that happens in their town. I think that that's what's so special for me to see, being a girl from a small town, to see something big happen in another small town, and for them to be super passionate. And it brings the racing like full circle. Like, it's bigger than racing because of camp. And then it's a bigger there's a bigger mission, right, altogether. But then it also, I think, shows NASCAR, with Kyle and what he does. I think the charity ride has set this mark, I hope, for other drivers' foundations, for other drivers' charitable work, that there needs to be, just don't slap your name or on a logo and say, I'm doing this and this is, but like actually do something. And Kyle actually does something. Kyle goes on this ride and leads this ride. And Kyle goes to camp and is very active at camp with campers. And to me, that shows going over and beyond for something that you really care about.
What's something you've learned from Kyle and Morgan that has stuck with you?
Well, it's funny enough. I rode twice with Kyle in the front seat of a Sprinter van the last time, on the site inspection. The last time driving from California to North Carolina, you hear a lot of stories. You hear like just crazy things that Kyle has a ton of knowledge. Like, he is very intelligent when it comes to anything and everything. Like, he has a story for everything and he knows something. Like, we were driving through Utah and I was like, he was talking about this man. It was like this huge rock. And I was like, well, how did that man own that rock? And he was like, well, duh, Ellie, he like bought the piece of land and this is how this works. Like, how do you not know that this is how you buy a rock? And like, he's always just teaching me something random. And I think for Morgan and Kyle, both what they've taught is like how to be really, Kyle is such a hands-on parent. And that's something like you don't see behind the scenes of these people working full-time jobs and running a whole event and doing the schedules that they do and being very hands-on parents at the same time. So I can't even tell you the life skills. I will say one thing that I've learned from the Petty family that I'm probably still not the best at is on time is late. You are always early. So any event that I've ever went with them, we are arriving early, which is me as a person does not do very often.
I can definitely understand that struggle. and these days you work with Ford Performance, Ford Racing. How'd that opportunity come about and what has that experience been like for you?
Yeah, a lot of connections from Motorsports. That's the really cool thing as people go a multitude of directions and working with NBC Sports. And I knew somebody at NBC who went to work for Ford Racing and she brought me on. And like I said, it's just a very small, close-knit world. Working on the manufacturer or the OEM side of things is very different than being on the team side of things. Is working with a team, your performance or like your satisfaction depends on your team. Working with an OEM, it's a much greater picture. It's not just one series, it's all the series. Ford Racing is not just NASCAR, not just Truck Series or Cup Series. It's F1, it's off-road, it's NHRA, it's drag racing. And so it's opened up this whole new world of racing that I knew nothing about. So that's a totally different way. And then on the Ford side of things is, the legacy that Ford Racing has in the sport, how you're honoring Ford as if yesterday won their 750th Cup Series win, and what these drivers and the legacy that they've left with being a Ford driver. And that goes back to, who's won in Ford and what Ford has meant. And it's really cool for me. My grandfather was a farmer in Wilkes County and everything he drove was Ford. I mean, Ford tractor to every Ford truck. I mean, every truck was a Ford. And so he was the most brand loyal person. And so it's kind of cool to have every time I look at the blue oval or see something, like I hope that he's very proud looking down, that I hope that I represent Ford well.
When it became official that you were going to represent Ford and work for them, did you have one of those moments where that full circle thing hit you?
No, I work for Camel Marketing, which is Ford's marketing agency. And I would say yes and no. No, in the sense of everything goes so full, goes so fast that I think I myself, and I want to remind myself to do that this weekend at North Wilkesboro, is to stand there and to say like, oh, this is really what I do now. Like I have to bring myself and something my boyfriend and I we do every night is we say, like, what are you grateful for today? And there's some days that are really not going to use a bad word, but just not the best days. And it's like, what am I grateful for today? And so we always come up with a couple bullet points each. And so for me, it's like, I am thankful for Ford because of the legacy it has in my own family, and that I still get to work in motorsports in a different way that I have. And it's something new. I love to learn every day. I love to be challenged every day. And I will definitely say I am that.
What excites you most about your current role?
That's a good one. I think you have to find something to be excited about, and when performance maybe not what you want it to be, or if, let's say, drivers aren't, their attitude toward things depends a lot on performance, right? And so that's been the case no matter what manufacturer I've worked with, that you just want to, how do I represent this brand the best way while still acknowledging, what's going on in the sport.
And not only, of course, do you do motorsports, you've done Olympic coverage. That's quite a different experience. What was that experience like, and how does it compare to motorsports?
A lot of ways the same, a lot of ways different. I've covered 3 Olympic Games, starting Tokyo 2020, which we know was in 2021 due to COVID. Winter Olympics, completely different than Summer Olympics. And then my last Olympic Games being Paris 2024. It's different in the sense of you're cheering for Team USA. Like you're really covering every Olympic athlete, but in a sense, like your passion obviously is for your home country. And I think even like with the World Cup going on right now, I love the Olympics that it feels this like patriotic passion that's bigger than yourself. And I also love that these are a lot of athletes that never get recognized for their sport. No one cares about table tennis until it's the Summer Olympics, or no one cares about men's gymnastics. Like, who watches that until it's 4 years, once every 4 years. And so I love that part of it. You're bringing to light these athletes that don't get the recognition and things that they should. So it's unlike racing in the sense of, or Major League Baseball or anything where these players are every day, or they're getting recognized, where it's showcasing these athletes that they've crafted, or they became masters of their craft over their whole life, and they've worked for this one moment for 3 weeks that they might be featured on television. So it's just a different experience in general.
How rewarding is that for you to share stories that aren't often shared, and to see kind of the payoff of their incredible hard work?
That's my goal in journalism in general. I don't care if I'm covering the Cars Tour on this Thursday night to Olympic athlete from Alaska who wins a gold medal in swimming, and there's only one Olympic-sized pool in the whole state of Alaska. True story. Like, that stuff is so cool. Is that I think as a journalist, my goal is to give people a voice who don't have a voice, or don't have, and that's been something that's beyond sports, right? I think every journalist should have that, whether it's a small business or during Hurricane Helene, I did a lot of, on the boots on the ground journalism work. Like, how do I tell these stories that no one's going to hear unless I tell it, or no one's going to tell it how I'm going to tell it? Like, going into race weekend this weekend, there's going to be stories told, but I'm from that area. I can have this different perspective. And the same for, Olympics. It's the same across the board. It's just having that journalistic integrity and how you say this, how you tell this story. And that's what fuels my passion more than anything. Is anybody can do like some jobs, but nobody can do, anyone can to tell a story, but nobody can tell the story how I'm going to tell it. And that's what fuels my passion to keep going.
I absolutely love that. And you mentioned keeping going. What are some of your goals that you haven't achieved? What are you looking forward to in the future? What are you working towards?
Oh, wow, Logan, the hard hitting stuff. Yeah, I think it's just to build. I want to love what I do and be passionate about what I do every day. And that's something that ever evolves and changes. And as social media can be exhausting because you're constantly chasing this high, this virality, these, you read these comments, you see it, it can be hard. And so I think it's staying true to myself and wanting to showcase. And it's so interesting of like winning an Emmy Award so young and then winning another one. And it's like a lot of journalists, that's the pinnacle of their career. That's something that you work for the whole time. And I don't take that lightly. I don't take that. It's so cool. Like it's, I need to work them in my background. I've got to get a display. They're like, I've got to do something with these. But, still being like, wow, I think sometimes looking forward is great, but also being like, seeing how far I've come. I don't think I do that a lot, and being like, wow, I've worked really hard to get where I am, and being really proud of that. But then also saying, what is next, and what can I do to change my career, impact my path. I always want to keep, working towards something higher, or working to change sports in general, or motorsports. Like, how do we keep growing and make this better? I don't think that you should ever be stagnant and, oh, well, I'm good enough. It's, well, how can I make myself better? So I don't have a solid answer of like, this is my next goal and this is what I want to do. But that's a work in progress.
Well, that's all right. When you get it figured out, we'll do a part 2. It's totally fine.
Yay. I hope to come back with a great update for you.
We'll do a part 2 for sure. And what's something about you that most people don't know, that some people might be surprised to know, given what your history and career is?
I am really passionate about national parks and the outdoors and physical activity. That's something really random, I guess, about me growing up in a small town in Western North Carolina. Like, I think people take for granted, like, all the hiking trails and just how beautiful our country is. And so that's how I kind of recharge, is like being able to go to national parks and take my little national park stamp book and get it stamped. It's like a treasure hunt for me. And that's where I feel like the most connected, is like being outside and just enjoying that. So I think that as much as I love to be at a court, at a ball field, at a racetrack, more than anything, like where I feel like the most calm. Like, imagine being at a racetrack where there's all these loud noises, and then you can just go outside and go hiking and it's peaceful. So I don't know if that's a super fun fact, but I don't have any hidden talents yet.
Well, that means they're hidden from you, but life's all about balance. So I love that kind of that complete 180, where you love the peace and tranquility of, say, nature or parks, but also you work in motorsports for a living. So you talk about the duality of individuals, and you've been so generous with your time. Just a couple more.
Sure.
What's a story that sticks out to you that most people would never know that had a lasting impact on you? Is there an athlete? Is there a moment? Is there just something that stuck with you that might be little to some, that means a lot to you?
I think we'll stick with the motorsports theme. I think that something that is glossed over a lot is the difference in drivers who come from money and it's been a little easier. Like, motorsport is a sport that you have to have money to be successful. And I don't think in NASCAR, I'm not shaming anyone for making it, because their families could afford for them to get there. However, it's the stories of the drivers. I was listening to something that Chase Briscoe, I didn't even know this about Chase Briscoe, where it talked about where he really came from nothing and kind of slept on people's couches to make it. Similar story, Eric Jones really got his opportunity because he beat Kyle Busch in the Snowball Derby. Carson Hocevar, his mom is one of the kindest people and very outgoing, and like, Carson's family owns a sporting goods, like a collectibles store in Michigan, and they just sponsored him and really helped him get to where he is in motorsports. So I don't think that's the stuff that's really touching to me, to hear these. And I have friends, a good friend, Jess and Travis Braden, who, were good at racing that just didn't have the money to keep going and make it. And so I think in motorsports, just to like the realness of what it takes is talent, but it's beyond talent. Corey Haim has a cool story with his dad. Like his dad has just helped him so much, and it's just been him and his dad kind of figuring this out together. And so those are the stories that I wish were talked about and told more, and I would love if people knew more about those.
And you know, you mentioned a lot of those names, and they're the future of NASCAR. A lot of them that you've talked about. NASCAR has changed so dramatically over the last couple of decades. What changes have stood out to you most from your perspective in your career, from that social media standpoint? What's been the most interesting stories to tell with all the vast changes that have come over the last decade or two?
I think the points change, like the chase coming back. I think that's the biggest thing, right? Is like, I think the number of races, I think it's grueling. I don't think it's talked about enough of like the schedule and how many races there are, and that these teams are traveling across the country. Like when you fly on a team plane and you go to the West Coast, you're stopping at least once to refuel, sometimes twice. You're flying out after a race on Sunday night, really late. Like imagine last night and they're not getting home. Like the race ends at 3 a.m. Like they're not getting home till probably 6, 7, even though it's a close, plane ride from Atlanta or drive from Atlanta to North Carolina. And so, oh man, I'm going on a tangent now, but like
take all the time you need.
That stuff about racing is going back to not being talked about enough, is like how grueling it is. And I think the biggest change is, one, what's going on right now with Toyota, crazy. Two, the chase format and how that's changed. I think like Denny Hamlin not winning a cup championship yet. Like there are so many storylines through this that could be talked about. And I think that the more that NASCAR becomes something that's interesting to watch, the better off, the more interesting you can make these storylines, and the bigger the personality. I think personality is huge for NASCAR. They haven't had a lot of it. I wish that these drivers knew that not being a literal flat Stanley walking around a racetrack, like show personality, show who you are beyond this guy in a helmet. Like that is what's going to keep NASCAR going forward and being a bigger deal, because that's like what F1, like people care about Lewis Hamilton because he wore these cool outfits and he dates Kim Kardashian, like all these random things about this lore about him. It's become a lifestyle, not just a sport. And I think the more that NASCAR can become a lifestyle versus just going in circles and turning left, the better it will be.
Fans have strong opinions about the playoff format. You've mentioned how NASCAR needs to continue to pay tribute to its roots. Motorsports as a whole needs to do that. What's your take on the great debate of the NASCAR playoff championship format, and how do you feel about going back to the chase?
Yeah, I think it's great. I think that the whole winning you're in, and I don't want to speak and get in trouble for what I say because I'm very opinionated, but I think it's just made racing that much more exciting this year, right? It's like Tyler Reddick, and he was being so dominant and winning these races, and then it's like, oh my gosh, is he just out of reach? But in any other sport, if you see this dominance, like that carries, like you're not like that carries throughout the postseason. So I know there was this huge debate of, oh, you don't want to clinch with 6 races left and nobody is going to care. I get that, but at the same time, like if a guy is out there, let's just go back to the winners last year. If we were just to think about every series and who won, I think that was like the final straw of like things have to change. Like how does Connor Zilic not win the Xfinity Championship? And you take this sport seriously. So yeah, I don't know what the debate is of going back to that format. So That's my
Well,
take.
well, there's a lot of hot takes on X about it. That is for sure. And then, what's something you've learned that you wish you knew starting out in sports, motorsports, and communications? What's just something you wish you knew?
I think for anyone wanting to work in sports, wanting to work in motorsports, the sacrifice that it takes, I think that it wasn't, and I don't think I say this enough, and it's not that I want to make it so much about me and look what I've done to get here, but it's not like one day I decided, oh, I want a job in sports, and I went and got a job in sports, and look at me. It was a lot of hard work. It was a lot of work for free. It was a lot of long nights, long weekends, and things for not paid a lot. I covered a lot of things, Logan, just like what you're doing, and doing this, and this isn't keeping the lights on, right? Like, but this is something that you're passionate about. And that shows through, is that one, like, your passion is going to prevail and your hard work ethic is going to prevail. Sorry, 1 second.
Take your time.
Thank you so much. So that and the sacrifice of time, like when you think working in motorsports, that's the weekend. That's when birthday celebrations and baby showers and weddings and things happen. I think I knew that, but I didn't realize how much of that I would miss and sacrifice. And having a support system that supports me has been huge. But in understanding that, like, hey, this is what it's like. My family is coming to the race this weekend, and like, if they're going to see me or my boyfriend is going, we're going to spend time together this weekend, it's going to be at the racetrack while I'm working. So it's realizing what the sacrifices it takes to do this job.
And is that the biggest piece of advice you would give to somebody trying to break into communications or marketing or what you do?
I would say is put yourself out there. Is that, blogging, that sounds like but like being an influencer in a sense, like everyone just started with one post. Everyone started with one podcast. You start with one. If I go back and look at probably the social media posts that I did or the things I did starting my career, I would not want those to see the light of day, but it got me to where I am now. And even you just have to start. You just have to say, you know what, people are going to absolutely think I'm silly for talking about motorsports. So they're going to think I'm silly for wanting to start this, TikTok channel on whatever topic you want. And I myself have a really hard time with this too. Even with the credentials and the experience that I have, I'm like, oh, that's so cringe. People are going to think that's so cringy to watch me do this. But it's like, no, that's how you start, is that, and it's so much easier even when I started to get a job in this, because you set yourself up as something and then people fake it till you make it, right? People believe that's what you are because you present yourself as this. And so that's how you do it.
No question. And so last question here. If you could have told your younger self when you ever dreamed about this, that you'd cover baseball, you would cover presidential politics, you would be at Legacy Motor Club and Ford Performance and having full circle moments with yourself within your family, what would you have told your younger self if you could tell your younger self your journey, what would you say?
If I told my younger self I worked in NASCAR, I would be like, boring. Like, I would be like, what did you do? So that's kind of funny. But to tell my younger self is that, dream big, that there isn't a dream. Like, these people, I watched Jimmy Johnson on television on the couch with my dad, and then to get to film him doing or working with him or interviewing him and doing something, it's like, or you hear about Richard Petty and he's this icon. And then to get these experiences, like, I don't even know if my younger self could comprehend what the weight of that would mean or what that was. I think that that's the really cool thing, is as you learn and you grow and you appreciate what you're doing, I think that takes an age and a maturity that, like, my younger self just couldn't see. But I would say, keep going, like, keep trying, keep dreaming would be my biggest advice.
That's wonderful. And Ellie, you've been so generous with your time, and I want to thank you for coming on. And where can people follow you? Where can they support you? And if there's anything you want to say, promote, you have the floor. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Logan. First, I want to just say thank you for having me. It's been an honor. It's not often, I hope, that I feel like I talk about myself this much and talk about. I appreciate you giving me the platform to talk about North Wilkes-Barre Speedway and just motorsports and NASCAR in general. I am at the Ellie Times, like the LA Times, but the Ellie Times on all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And I'm always open to chatting or hoping I can respond to any questions or comments. So thank you again.
Well, thank you so much, and best of luck to Ford this rest of the season, and just hope you have a great rest of the year. And we look forward to having you back on for part 2. That's going to happen.
Thank you, Logan.
Thanks so much.